Hi everyone, I'm John, an entrepreneur and investor. I started this channel to share what I've learned transitioning from an employee to an entrepreneur and hopefully build a network of like-minded individuals who want to journey along this same path that I pursued. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 tips that you should execute before embarking on that business or entrepreneur journey of yours. Tip number 1, budgeting and get a credit line. Now, how do you do that? Budgeting, I don't think needs much introduction, but maybe I'll show you how I do it. And I've learned over the years, I used to spend hours and hours of spreadsheet. Then I found that there are certain tips and tricks that help you shortcut your time. The first one is try to put all your expenses on a credit card. Now, why do I prefer that? This is because a credit card gives you a statement every month. It has quite a good digital trail of how you spend, and from there you can analyze actually whether you're overspending or underspending. So what I do is I take probably about half an hour every month just to look at what are the expenses that goes on my credit card and how do I budget for the family. And don't worry, don't think of it as a momentous task. You just start, you don't need to be super detailed like every line item, but categorize them. Okay, I spend probably 10% or 15% on meals this month, or grocery or all this, and you start to see a pattern develop. Try doing it for 3 months. You will start to see that you're somewhere within range, right? And then once you start going out of range, then you know that at least you have a tracking system. Now, why is this important is when you start an entrepreneur journey, it's not going to be like similar to an employee where every month you get a paycheck. And unless you budget and you know the expenses, the fixed expenses going out every month, you wouldn't be able to give yourself that kind of confidence, and you will fall into this emotional trap of fear so much that you get paralyzed in doing anything. So please start on a budget. Second thing is, before you leave that high paying job, make sure you get the best credit card with the maximum amount of credit limit. Why is that? Now, even businesses need credit lines. And how do they build credit lines? Is they build credibility through a track record of how much sales they bring in a year and things like that. For an employee, what's your track record? It's actually your salary. So once you have already got a good track record, get this free credit facility. Obviously, don't go recklessly, go borrow credit card debt, take out a personal loan and all that. But what I'm saying is, once you have a credit card, it's a free credit line available to you in case you really need cash flow for certain months and you just need some money to roll over. I highly recommend this to especially people who are starting out and don't have a credit facility. I rather use that rather than going to my parents or my family members to ask for a loan, because one, it's not a very good feeling, and two, in terms of interest rate, you may get a very favorable interest rate from your family, 0 or whatever, but then at least on a credit card level, it's going to be high, but at least it's only for emergency purposes. So, tip number 1. Tip number 2, always build selling skills. Now, I know a lot of people out there say, oh, I hate selling, I hate being rejected, I have this fear, I don't want to lose face. Oh, John, I'm introverted. So how do I start? Actually, start by it. Today, in the world of online social media, there's so many ways to start small and not have that fear of being rejected. Start a blog. It's free. Start writing something about what you passionately or deeply care for, an issue, a problem that you think you can solve, and you have an idea. So write, write. I mean, you don't need to have, I know some people don't like doing videos. Like for me, I find it, I'm fine doing it. Start writing, start sharing your thoughts, and start getting feedback from people. Now, if you want to take it one step further, I really recommend doing face-to-face selling. Why is that? Learn rejection. Learn that it is not personal. Learn also to get to understand the customer's behavior. This is a very important reason why you should build selling skills, because once you start on that path, right, you also learn other good skills. Things like learning how to ask good questions, learning how to listen properly, because a lot of times I'm actually not a very good listener, but what I've learned over time is the patience to actually quiet down my brain and try to understand where the customer is coming from. Let's try to stand in his shoes. And it's a skill that you can build over time. And it was a very humbling experience. I can tell you it wasn't easy for me because I'm more of an extroverted person. I like to talk more than I listen. But over time, having gone through rejections, multiple rejections, people, and initially you would take it personally. There's no doubt. But over time, you build certain kind of maturity to know, hey, what is this guy really trying to tell me? What is this person or he or she concerns that I'm not actually addressing by me talking? But can I just shut up more and just listen and really try to understand where they're coming from? And you see, the struggle is this: if we don't learn how to ask good questions, you never know how to solicit what the customer is really thinking about. And I think this is such a crucial skill that everyone should learn, regardless of if you're going to start your own business, or even as an employee you want to get a promotion or whatever. You will realize that you will leave a great impression with your supervisors when you ask very good and thought-provoking questions. So tip number 2, build selling skills. Tip number 3, network with people outside your industry. Now, why do I say this? When you work for a certain industry and you mix with the same kind of people, you realize that there is a certain mindset. Very rarely you get people from the same industry and then they have a very, very different or broader perspective. And it's no pun intended to them, it's just that the atmosphere, the framework, forces people to fit into that mold. So when you mix with people outside the industry, be it someone who does skilled labor, you get different perspectives of how they do or how they charge people for their time, for their skills. If you talk to people from finance, what do they look for when they provide credit risk assessments and all these things. So once you network with people outside the industry, your mindset broadens, your paradigm also shifts. Now, I know a lot of people will say, hey John, I hate small talk. People wouldn't like talking to me. I'm a very boring person. So Dale Carnegie once said this. He said, to be interesting, be interested. Now, how do you apply that? It's actually very simple. Ask questions. You don't like talking about yourself? You feel that it's like blowing your own trumpet? Sure, fine. Ask questions. Ask what is this guy doing, what actually matters to him, does he have family? And slowly, people just love to talk about it. No matter how, the more introverted and the more you ask an introverted person questions, most of the time they will start opening and talking to you because you're interested. And they find it, wow, this guy is really genuinely interested in me. Now, don't do that fictitiously. I really think authenticity is something that people can tell. And just be genuinely interested. And by doing that, you get a lot of benefits. One, you learn the customer's behavior. How people in banking think. Are they more conservative? How people in oil and gas think. Are they more frivolous in their spending or less frivolous? Things like this. You understand customers' behavior more. And most importantly, for tip number 3 as a conclusion, if you never ask, you will never know. Now, if you're liking the video so far, please give this video a like, give me feedbacks and comments about the tips I'm sharing with you, and please share, especially for those of you who are in employment. You get a little bit frustrated. I know, I've been there, and you want to think about something, but you just don't know where to start, and you just wanted some quick hacks or quick tips. Just share them with your friends or family members, or even some of your colleagues. Tip number 4, and I consider this my ultimate secret sauce: always save and invest. Now, I know it sounds cliche. I know a lot of people have so many self-help videos will tell you save, invest. You meet a unit trust consultant, you meet an insurance guy, they'll tell you this. But here I go with a question: how many of you really implement this? Now, remember when I shared with you tip number 1 about a budget? When you put your head down and start building that spreadsheet of a budget, right, you will know where you are. The problem is a lot of people get paralyzed into this fear of not having enough, fear of what am I doing to earn more. Unless and until you put it down on paper, right, the clarity will never come. And trust me, I've had the privilege of training more than 6,000 people, talk to friends and family about finance tips, investing tips, and this is the most basic stuff and the most rudimentary stuff is what people get stuck with. But once you pass those basic steps, right, this it becomes much more easier as you go along. So the second thing that I find that a lot of people, when they hear this advice, is that, okay, John, tell me what stock to buy or what investment to do, and they just want a shortcut tip. I understand and I hear you, and they get anxious because they realize that time is not on their side, or they just want to get out of a job and try to find passive income. And this passive income thing, I can do a whole video about it. But I think by you putting it on a budget, it will help you in how to implement. Put at least 10% of your take-home pay into a savings pot. Don't even look at it. I started off as a property investor, and every month a big chunk of my income was being used to pay loans, housing loans. And I virtually had no savings at the end of zero. So what I did was, instead of sulking and thinking, well, I should find more ways and earn money, which I should, but what I did was, every year when I got my bonus, I made it a rule that half of my bonus will go into my fund pot, because I know I'm soaking up paying for housing loans as an installment for my investments, but at the same time I needed play money to allow some fun in me. If not, I would not have the mental capacity, emotional capacity to be invested in the long run. So, but even then, half of my bonus goes into investment account or a savings account that I made a rule I can't even touch. Best of all, if you don't even have an ATM card for it. I didn't open up a separate savings account. I just soak it into my stocks investment account. The trust account, for those of you who already have a stockbroking. It's a trust account. It pays slightly lower than fixed deposit rates, but it's a good gatekeeper, because for you to withdraw, it takes certain more steps comparatively to a current account or a savings account where you have an ATM. Now, why do you do this? The problem is we always overestimate what we can do in the short run, but underestimate what we can do in the long run. And you need some kind of a gatekeeper or a system that disciplines yourself that you cannot touch this money. The moment the money is easily available to you, that's when the itchy hand syndrome will come. And more importantly is this: the moment you start investing, right, instead of just saving, what you do is you have time to make mistakes. You have time to invest. There's no such thing as guaranteed investments that you will return money straight away. I lost hundreds of thousands, probably even $1 million ringgit, making mistakes in the investing arena, in business and all that kind of thing. But that is a necessary learning curve that you have to go through. A lot of people don't want to go through that pain. They don't want to start investing. They don't want to start saving. It's because they are more willing to save because it's tangible. You can see it at the end of the day, right? It's capital, somewhat you put in savings account, capital protected. But most people get paralyzed in investing is because they hate losing it. But you see, the moment you don't put that money to work and make mistakes, right, you will never go through that learning curve, never build that confidence. So for me, this was my biggest tip, the biggest confidence booster for me to leave my employment, because I wasn't into any side hustle or side business back then. And the confidence booster that I had was really a skill to invest. Knowing myself, knowing my skill to invest really helped me, put in that decision to leave my employment. Last but not least, tip number 5, and I only discovered this tip recently after I became an entrepreneur. We have to build a skill to say no more often than we say yes. Now, you'll be thinking, I thought, John, when you come as an entrepreneur and then you said you build selling skills, you have to just yes to your client and make your customer happy, right? Not really. And why I'm sharing this with you is because from the mistakes I've learned is this. First and foremost, you have to ask yourself, what are you really, really good at? Now, a lot of times sometimes we overestimate our skill, and it's not that you maliciously do that. It's just that sometimes you think, oh, okay, I have the confidence to do this or that, or sometimes you may not have the confidence to do this. But I think spending time to reflect on what you're really, really good at, and you get help by asking feedback from trusted sources, helps you hone down on what you can focus on. And there are many ways of getting help, a trusted friend, maybe you can even get a professional coach, which I do. More about that in probably another video. But by honing on what you're really, really good at, it helps you focus your resources, your attention, and your time on one or two things rather than being a jack of all trades but a master of none. And I suffered through that. I was very attracted to what I would call shiny object syndrome, and I realized that a lot of the work, business efforts that I did was a lot of it was half-baked. Yeah, some results here, some results there. And why we fall into this syndrome is very simple, because we are not patient enough to wait for the results to actually come. In any business or investing journey, right, you don't get immediate results. Those traders that made money very, very quickly, you will realize that the market will humble them very, very quickly. And those traders that can sustain their income year in, year out are those that have honed their skill over years. What you only see is the tip of the iceberg. And I think we as entrepreneurs or even investors, sometimes we fall into this trap of, hey, I'm not getting the result I want, to quickly switch and I'll just do this, I'll just do that, and just grab. And what I've learned over the years is that once you focus on something and be patient, give it at least 2 years before you see a result. And that's where you focus and discipline will really help you attain those kind of results that you desire, rather than jumping from one thing to the other. So there you go, the 5 tips that I have benefited tremendously by implementing, knocking on a lot of walls, talking to my coach, and having great friends and like-minded investors and entrepreneurs around me and giving me that feedback. So if you think you've benefited tremendously from this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends and family, and I hope that you could help me build a network of like-minded people that we can lean on each other, that we can share tips and tricks. And I'll see you in the next video, guys.